Welcome to the June SOF Community Pod. It's great to see so many of you here. Quick look around the room. Is this a first time for anybody? Someone discovering it? Hey, Samantha. Hey, Emma. Really good to meet you. You are so welcome. We always start with a poem and then a couple of minutes of silence. So this is your invitation to sit back in your chairs, to look out a window, to close your eyes. This is your permission to arrive and be in the room with colleagues and friends. So I'm going to read a Donna Ashworth poem this morning called Check Your Vibes. Do not dull your light to match another's. Do not dim your frequency to fit a muted room. Do not lower your vibration for fear of standing out. And do not ever try to lower someone else's. Do not allow shouting voices to drown your instincts, and do not silence your instincts when she is screaming at you to hear. Vibes are not woo-woo, my friends. They are the energy that runs this mystical rock that we inhabit, and they control everything. Check your vibes, never dim. It's the new chin up. So I'm just going to take a moment now, probably about 90 seconds, 2 minutes. Just in silence. So just give yourself permission to close your eyes, sit back and take some beautiful deep breaths. Take a really deep breath in through your nose, sigh it out through your mouth. Need a little wiggle as you come present in the space. Have a little stretch. Welcome. Welcome to June. Welcome to the SOF pod. So in the UK and in Europe, last week, the 1st of June is the start of summer officially. And it's the start of, well, in theory, long, warm, sunny days. And I hope for people, if they've got gardens or even window boxes, seeing what you planted back in the winter starting to come to life, start to show up. And I do wonder whether the same is true for our work. And what I've noticed in particular in June and in May, actually, if I'm honest, is that clients are slowly reappearing. People are knocking on doors cautiously and inquiring as to what you do, what I do anyway, and asking for quotes, which I think is really interesting. We had this conversation in May around what is happening in our world, and consistently people are saying, it's slow out there and it's getting slower. I think for the UK in particular, the fact that we've had our election announced now, that it's happening on the 4th of July, that will be a helpful shift, because again, I think a lot of industry is waiting to hear who gets elected, because that's going to have I think an impact on our taxes, like if we get Labour or if we get Conservative. Either way, it's a shit show, excuse my French. But I think it'll help people sort of, hopefully in industry, start to make some bigger decisions that then allows it trickle down. I still think it'll take another 6 months for us to see things shift back, or just feel a little bit more secure. That's what I'm noticing. I'm delighted as well that there are longer nights. So I couldn't quite believe it last night when I went to bed at 10. It was like still really light. I don't know if other people are noticing that. Our friends in Europe, Camilla for Spain, Suzanne in Germany, Callan, I see you were in Belgium. I think you probably get the similar weather to us as well, though. So, or similar sort of light hours. But slowly, I don't know, there's a sense of a small seed of hope, and that things are happening. Wow, Sam, 11:15 in Northern Ireland. Yes, you're further west. Gosh, it's interesting, isn't it? So today, I guess in a way, it's sort of the session we're going to have with Deb's, and who's in Italy, by the way. We're not talking to her about the weather. Okay, can we just make a promise? Very British thing here. It's hot and they're starting their first heat wave. I don't feel sad for her. But we've got Debs today from Session Lab, and Debs and I, we're going to have a conversation with you about the state of facilitation, though I keep calling it the State of the Nation report, State of Facilitation 2023 report that was produced earlier this year, based on 900 plus facilitators, trainers globally, talking about what is going on in our industry. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it from the perspective of what are we noticing has shifted and changed since the pandemic, because I think there has been some impact on how we do business. So Debs, hello, welcome to the SOF Community Pod.
Hello, Kirsty. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. So nice to see so many smiley faces this morning.
Love it. Debs, can you just introduce yourself and describe how you describe yourself?
Oh my, isn't that always a hard challenge for facilitators? Okay, so I'm Deb. My full name is Deborah Remoiso. Many people find that hard to pronounce, and I'm happy with Deb. So just go with Deb. And I'm based in central Italy, where there is no weather today. None at all. Don't worry.
None.
We're not gonna talk about the weather. And I am a facilitator. I have been facilitating since 2009. I've been told that makes me a dinosaur in the space. I mostly work with NGOs and nature conservation parks and public authorities. I have very little to no experience with the private sector. So if you have experience to share about the private sector, I'm always curious, because it's really different, right? And besides facilitating, because I'm super passionate, addicted, obsessed about facilitation, I write about facilitation, talk about facilitation. So I wrote a book about facilitation only in Italian. So it's a very small brag, because the Italian market for that is tiny, but it makes me, somebody in the very small market of Italy. And that led me to working for Session Lab, where I write content about facilitation. So articles about things like what is facilitation and who are facilitators, and 15 ways to hold a hybrid event that will not result in a devastating headache. Yeah, that's a high promise. And I edit the State of Facilitation Survey and Report, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Thank you. So nice that there's other dinosaurs in the room. Kirsty, that makes you a dinosaur as well. For sure.
I've been facilitating for years.
Yeah, I know.
Just a quick check, just by show of hands. Who is aware of Session Lab? Who uses Session Lab? Cool. So Session, if you're not aware of Session Lab, just to clarify, it's I'll describe it, you can add to it, Debs, but I think it's an awesome online tool to help us create, design and produce amazing workshops. and flows. And it has everything in there, from a tool to be able to write your flows and agendas through to a library of activities and exercises. It has a thriving community, which is just fantastic, who are very supportive and help one another, especially from a design perspective. Yeah, it's a useful tool. I've got a code for people at the end as well. If people are wanting to go and explore it, you can. But Debs, today we're going to talk about like what happened post-pandemic. So if we say the pandemic, I think it probably finished like mid 21, late 21. So we sort of then started to, the new normal, as it was called, was 2022. And then last year, probably things had settled back again. Back is the wrong word, isn't it? It settled into whatever the new norm was. Can you just share with us some headlines of what you noticed or what the report noticed? And I just want to say to everybody, if you want to put questions in the chat box, please do, or comments. It'd be really useful if you did that as we go along.
Yes, especially people who have read the report and want some more in-depth insights, and especially people who have no idea what we are talking about, in case those are around, just for clarity. So what is the State of Facilitation report? Although Kirsty said it already, but maybe I'll just give a little bit of background before talking about what we noticed about the pandemic. Is that okay, Kirsty? Yeah. Okay, so Session Lab is what Kirsty said. It's a wonderful tool for the back office part of our work, so the designing. And it's also a resource place for material on facilitation. And because of it having this, so it's a company, right? A small company based in Europe, we're fully remote. Everybody at the company facilitates, which is heaven, because I have 12 colleagues and everybody knows how to facilitate. I'm so lucky. So starting in 2022, we decided to put out a yearly survey and report on the state of facilitation, essentially because there wasn't one yet. So ours was an industry with no comprehensive yearly report. Other industries, like I'm always mentioning UX because I have UX colleagues, right? Designers, they have the yearly UX report. And now we do too. So we started doing it because it hadn't been done yet. And both from a business perspective and from a curiosity perspective, we just wanted a bit more data and to be able to say a bit more informed things about what facilitation is and what facilitators do. So every year around September, we put out a survey. It's quite a long survey. It's quite comprehensive. So it's like sit down and reflect before the school year starts about how your past year went. And then we collect those questions, and throughout the Christmas holidays, yes, me and my colleagues package it all together and write out a report that comes out early the next year. So that creates the whole confusion with it's the 2023 survey and the 2024 report, and you just have to go with that. So the 2024 report is the second edition. It means it's the first time we can compare. We can compare a little bit imperfectly because we changed some of the questions because we got a lot of feedback and we want to constantly improve. But if you go to the report page, and it's right there because Kirsty is smart and she put it right there, you can see that a few of the graphs you can toggle between the results from 2022 and 2023. In both cases, it's about 1,000 people responding around the world with a strong focus on US and EU, which we are trying to move for more diversity. It's not easy, but we try, we do our best. So you're looking at a bit of a Western world facilitation data. Now, when I co-wrote and compiled and edited this edition, I wasn't really thinking about the pandemic much because I'm part of the people who's trying to remove it from our collective consciousness. And it was actually talking with Kirsty that I realized how many data points in there actually are. This is the long tail of this is consequences of what happened with facilitation in the pandemic. So that's why we thought that it would be an interesting thing to focus on today. And I guess we can talk about some. So there's a lot of things in the report, and you can go through the various sections with whatever you're interested in. But today we will kind of look at some data points that pointed, okay, what changed from 2020 to now that we can probably attribute to changes due to COVID-19.
Because there were quite a few.
Let me think. I think the length of sessions is okay. We can geek out, right? We are in a room where we can geek out.
Yeah,
people.
definitely.
That is amazing. I love that. So unless people here have questions, and I don't think I see any
Not
in
yet.
the chat yet.
They'll come.
They'll come. Okay, so I will start with length of sessions and where are sessions happening, meaning hybrid, remote, or in real life. And I will do the sharing screen thing. And I will start from here. Okay, so this is obviously the report, and you can download it or you can read it online. And I will go and look at facilitation practice. What was it like to facilitate in 2023? So these were questions oriented around the topic, how has your facilitation practice changed over the past 12 months? We have some quantitative and some qualitative. And this is one that I think is so interesting. I also have a personal beef with this one because we collect so much information. But before we looked at results, I was having a conversation with Gerardo de Lusenberger, who's the current head of IAF, that's the International Association of Facilitators, and he's in Italy. He's a friend, he's a mentor, and he said, "Oh, you know what's really interesting, Deb, is that session length has gotten shorter." And I was like, "What data are you basing that on? I don't see that happening." And he's like, "Just wait till you get your data in. You're going to see sessions are getting shorter," and he was right. So that's why I have a personal beef with this one. So I'd be so curious to know if this is people's experience in this room, but there seems to be a global trend towards really short sessions. So if you look at this graph, you see that, I'm not going to go into the fine things of data because I'm just not a data person, I'm a story person. But 1-2 hour session is overall the majority of sessions, and that's short. That to me has at least two things I want to observe about that. I believe that this is a consequence, not so much of the pandemic per se, but of moving to online facilitation as the main mode of facilitation during the pandemic years, because 1 to 2 hour long sessions such as this one is perfect for online. It's correct, right? 1.5 hours is correct for online. And I think it's translating into in real person, like in real life, or in presence, like clients and even possibly facilitators have packaged this expectation that that's the right length for a session. Is it not? I'm not going to get into that, but interesting. It also means that we have to, as facilitators, get to the point really quickly. I think it has a risk of giving us a kind of tendency to do away with all those wonderful things like welcoming and playing music and reading poems and giving time for that, and giving time for the opening and giving time for the ending, which I think are so important. But if you only have 1.5 hours, and you also have clients saying these things that you see in quotes are direct quotes from responses to the survey, which we've added because we like to give it some qualitative flavor. And quite a number of people have reported, people seem to want everything in 1 hour or less if possible, more pressure to go straight to the point, usually no more than 2 hours, a trend towards shorter interventions. So that's the first thing that I'd like to maybe unpack. Kirsty, what do you think?
2 hours, are they always virtual or are they in person and virtual?
Okay, so we didn't correlate. We have no way of correlating those two.
Don't worry. Well, and I put it to the group, like, what are you noticing from your own perspective?
Yeah.
Is it 2 hour virtual sessions or like short virtual sessions, or are you also being asked to do short in-person sessions?
And I'm also reading that in the chat.
Feel free to put your voices in the room. Don't have to stay silent.
Well, I had an odd request the other day, Kirsty, which was to do. They were doing a series of 9 1.5-hour sessions.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to do 2 45-minute sessions, and then could I do 2 to 3 hours during a 2-day workshop in Barcelona?
Wow.
And I thought, well, that was an unusual request.
Yeah. And I think it'd be interesting because I think they're going to start clients anyway. I hope we need to educate them that the price is still the same. If you're going to take me out to Barcelona for 2 to 3 hours, I'm still going to charge you for a full day plus some travel time. And if it's a 45-minute session, nothing changes in 45 minutes. So what is it you really need me to do? Nicole, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, so I'm being asked, in the virtual environment, I'm being asked for, whereas we were kind of doing, 2-hour sessions at the start of COVID, people are now saying, look, our people are just losing the ability to concentrate. They can't concentrate for 2 hours. So can you do 60 minutes or 90 minutes?
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it much tougher. And they're also saying, we want real tangibility. Can you just kind of cut some waffle and nice stuff? We need stuff that we can take away and do. There's much more focus on action.
I also get frustrated with that, Nick, because you and I have spoken about this at length. Yeah. It's like, they just want to be told. And I'm like, yeah, we can tell people what to do. That does not equate to learning or the fact that people are going to go away and make any behavioural change.
Absolutely. So, and also there is a bit of, in my world, so I do a lot of training as well, organisations going, I've sent these people here, you have facilitated, you had conversations, right, why is stuff not changing? It's like, because culturally your whole business hasn't changed. If you've just sheep dipped people and sent them, gone, tick that box, guess what? You're not going to see the impact because no one's asking them about it. Yeah. No one else is also role modelling all of those behaviours.
And I wonder as well, we're starting to notice, so there's an expectation that these 2 hours or multiple 2-hour bite-sized chunks are going to make some shifts, that maybe this generation of managers and leaders are suddenly are about to have their aha moment of, oh no, we need to be doing something, which is something many of us who have worked in the training space have banged that drum for years and just said, we can coach your people, we can teach your people, but if the managers and leaders aren't shifting and coaching and developing, nothing is going to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if they're about to have that.
Yeah, but in face-to-face sessions, we're still running day-long sessions, and people are saying we get the value out of this. Yeah. And the reason that they're wanting to do full-day sessions is because then people block the whole time out of their diary and they dedicate the day. Part of a day, people then think they can dip in and out even for part of a day. So they want to do whole days, so then people are kind of literally off the grid for a day, and they can immerse much more.
Yeah. I like what Rich just said there. A sequence of shorter sessions can work to experiment and experience the everyday, then review, reflect and recalibrate. Lots of lovely alliteration there, Rich. I like that. Etna, hello, lovely. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. I'm in the children's homes residential sector, so they still like the in-person days, no longer than 6 hours inclusive of breaks. So that's interesting. They're very accommodating. So it's like a 10 a.m. start because we have a lot of childcare shifts as well. Do you know what I mean? Covering the shifts. So it's fine. I can work with it. And what's interesting is I need to, the learning outcomes then is clear what can be covered in that time and what can't be covered. That's what I find sometimes you have to negotiate that with them. And online is still 3 hours inclusive of breaks for some of the stuff we do on Eventbrite, and that's still working. So 3 hours inclusive of breaks. But interesting when you say 2 hours, I think I might go back and reflect on that.
I'll pick it up. I see Kirsty is on the phone. Just to say, for many of the comments that I heard, and I read a few of them, also for me, it's just a matter of being aware that this is going on and being aware of what to explain or how to explain to clients when, short bite-sized sessions are not the only way. Like, sure, they might be useful for this, but may I remind you that you might also have this other option of whole day things. I recently facilitated a 2-day thing, and I was the one saying, maybe 1 day is enough. But then the effect, when people sleep on things and then you meet them the next morning and they're completely different, and some change has actually happened throughout the night. And I was reminded of how important that is. So I think with that, and also with the next topic I want to bring, which is online, hybrid, and in person, I think it just means as facilitators and trainers, we need to be skilled on explaining to clients the relative advantages. And if they expect that the only pattern is 2-hour sessions, to remind them that no, there are other patterns that are possible, and you might want to choose them. That makes sense to you, Kirsty?
It does. Let's talk about hybrid, because it's a love-hate relationship. I think many of us have. And I'm looking at Phil, because Phil and I did a couple of sessions very early in 2023 about hybrid and how to run those sessions effectively, and then just turned around and went, we don't believe in them, so we won't teach it anymore.
Yes.
So now maybe we need to bring it back, Phil, because
I think you do. I think you do, Kirsty and Phil, because this was one of the results that really surprised me. So we've asked for 2 years in a row, what types of sessions have you delivered over the past 12 months? So we're asking at around the end of 2023. And I was completely expecting hybrid to disappear. I have written a guide on hybrid facilitation. I did research on it. I thought I have a pretty clear sense of what makes it work and what not. Investments in technology and co-facilitation help. But I thought it would disappear. I thought it was just it's this weird moment post-COVID, in COVID, when some people are allowed to meet in person, some people are not, and that's what gives rise to this hybrid. I assume you know what I mean in this context, but hybrid is a session at the same time with some people joining online and some people joining in person. And I thought it would go away, and then I got the results, and it's like, what, half of facilitators have facilitated hybrid in 2023 a few times a year. Okay, this is not going away. So, Kirsty, agree? I see you unmuted yourself. I'm like, she wants to jump on something here.
At the chat, and it's really gone off in that, as people have been saying, it's happening, it's coming. You said something to me. It's in the report. It's when hybrid just happens accidentally. And then Phil's just called it the third best option. It's when it's suddenly like it was all planned to be in person, and suddenly you get the last minute, but we've got a few people now who need to join us, remotely. And you're no. I've now gone to the point where I'm like, okay, then the whole thing has to be virtual. There's no point us trying to do this in person, because it just doesn't work. And by the way, when we say we're going to take it virtual, that doesn't mean that 5 of you now sit in a meeting room together, because that will not work either. But I think we just have to get quite explicit at explaining what can hybrid look like when it's done really well, just like some people are saying in the chat here, and how you set up for that so that it is done brilliantly. Yeah.
The tech is super important. Co-facilitation is super important. Yes. And I could not agree more. It cannot happen by accident. The way you described is super painful. Like, at the last minute, no, because you are effectively designing 3 sessions, one online, one in person, and one for the interactions. And before I just hear from Etna, just to notice what else is in this graph is that this graph to me says facilitators are now expected to know how to facilitate remotely and how to facilitate in person.
Yeah, good point.
Only about 5% of people have not done one of those at all. So that means you have to be able to do both. And that, I assume, that might be starting to be a challenge for people who began facilitating when it was remote only. So now you have to learn all these new things in person, while people who began working in person only had to do that quick learning about how to do it remotely during the pandemic. And it's again a matter of awareness and about being able to articulate to clients, yes, remote can work for this thing you need to do. I highly recommend doing something in person for this other thing you need to do. And hybrid is possible, but you're going to have to put more resources in it. Yeah. So to become articulate in explaining all these new options, because we have these new options that didn't exist before.
Edna, what's your question?
I think you answered my question, because I get that an awful lot, the hybrid and last minute, for the love of God. Do you know what I mean? Why? And also they expect me to have the IT. So you're telling me it's the client that needs to have the IT facility to do hybrid, not me. A local authority. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They chance their arm, I think.
There's a couple of things that people who are, I'm not specializing in hybrid, but might have, like that, the owl camera that follows people when they speak, or microphone. Yeah, exactly. Climbers, but mostly it's a matter of tech in the location. So that shouldn't be up to us. It's great microphones in the locations. It's screens, lots of screens, projectors. Are we expected to bring a projector normally?
I don't know. They want me to bring, I don't know. I just gave up and I said no, basically, in the end, because I couldn't get my head around it. They want me to bring 2 laptops, and then I just said no. I just said no. It's one of the
production role. That's another. Oh, sorry. Italians interrupt to express enthusiasm.
I love the way you just clarified yourself. That's brilliant.
Because it's a cultural thing. Like sometimes the Italians interrupt because they're rude, and sometimes they interrupt to express enthusiasm. It's not meant. I know in not all cultures is that cool. So that's a production role. That's a different role. That's the technician. That's like my boyfriend's a musician. So that's like, he's not expected to bring the equipment for the amplification. They hire a production person to do that.
Okay.
And you can bring the report as evidence to your client. Say, here, it's written right here. See, it's in the state of facilitation report.
Well, I can say to them, if you want hybrid, I know they don't have the technology. Have you the technology set up for that? And I can consider it. I know. So now that I know, that's grand. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. I also think there's a market, if anybody in here is into building co-working spaces. I think there's a market for spaces designed especially for hybrid.
Definitely. Okay, what else? I'm conscious I'd love everyone to have a chance to like go into a breakout room. Can we just do one more observation about AI and technology?
Oh yeah.
Because AI's definitely hit us in the last year for sure.
Oh sure. Okay, so tech. All right, so and now I've lost the screen I wanted to share. That was bound to happen.
What I'm loving is in the group, because we're predominantly Northern Europeans here, everyone loving the fact that you sort of explained the Italian enthusiasm, because we've got Germans, Belgians, Brits. And I just love that.
With Spanish or Italian, sometimes we interpret for enthusiasm. It's not.
No, we're so polite as British, like we're like, oh my goodness, oh so sorry, I've just interrupted you, or like, oh how rude, they talked over me. You know, that kind of inner voices kick off. Anyway,
that's why you get the stereotypical impression of me and my friends all talking about on top of one another, and what we are doing is expressing enthusiasm for each other's presence.
I love that. Yeah. Ooh, what's this?
And then sometimes it's rude. Okay, so this is another. So this is a trend that we're noticing everywhere. It has to do with the pandemic, but not only with the pandemic, which is the pervasiveness of technology in our daily lives. For dinosaurs like me and Kirsty, I think the image of a facilitator in the room with a tablet is new. Like it's emerged in the last few years. I had never seen that before. I had never done that before. Or I have recently been, like after the pandemic, I've been doing more in person, but I'll generally have a mentee or some other sort of survey that I show to the whole group at the beginning or at the end. So what we've called that in the report is digitally assisted facilitation. So tools that you can translate, you can use them in online, and you can use them in person, and they assist your facilitation digitally in delivery, or of course in design. To me, Menti is like the core example, because I don't know, it's the one that I got most practice in and use on. And I was reflecting on how it really solves a problem that I had before the pandemic, which is material for reporting that could be available without me having to transcribe post-its. And now I do it with a mentee, but that means I'm bringing a digital tool in the room, asking people to take out their phones and doing something with them. So these are the questions that you're looking at is which tools did you use regularly over the past 12 months? Plenty of course, these were multiple response, so the sum of this is not 100. Plenty of offline tools and still PowerPoint, I don't know. But maybe more interesting is what were people using for delivery? So you have Zoom, that obviously means it's online, but then also things Mentimeter, Miro, Mural, Google Jamboard, rest in peace, Kahoot, Slido, Padlet. So there's all of these tools available that just weren't there before. And for our practice, I think what that says is we need to be at least literate about a few of those, willing to experiment with new ones as they come out, because they might solve some real problems that we had. Now, as for AI, and that is this slide, consider that this was asked in late 2023. So late 2023, about half of facilitators had never used AI in their facilitation practice yet, but half had. And then we asked, and what they were using, of course, is mainly OpenAI, ChatGPT, but then a few others. And then we asked people in an open question, what are you using it for? So you can look through these. I think these are very interesting and also give some inspiration. Some of them I thought were so fun. I don't remember where I put that one, but this one's great. Whoever did this has my eternal gratitude. I will feed my work into ChatGPT and then ask it to surmise what my goals are. If it doesn't guess correctly, then it means my plan wasn't clear enough.
Oh my God, I love that.
So smart. So smart. But essentially people, facilitators were experimenting with it for session inspiration, for copywriting, like you have to write the invitation. And I don't even remember what for.
I wrote some down. People, I read it through this morning, so you don't have to. So idea generation, so they're using it as a springboard for ideas, so not like giving you the ideas for the design, but just as a, I need to do an activity on ... So I've used that before just to see what it shows up. It's okay. I got back some very basic ideas, but nothing groundbreaking. Copywriting assistant, pre-work research. So if there's a topic I wanted to research, I've put a question in and just got like a really nice summary. Creating visuals. I haven't played with that yet with DALL-E, but I think that's the next one. Scenario planning, improving draft agendas. I thought that was really interesting. And also after sessions, summarizing large quantities of information. But I think that was more, I use to do that, Debs, I use, where I've got loads of post-it notes on a flip chart. I take a photo and I put it into the post-it note app, which then has a link to Miro. And then I can manipulate all the post-it notes in Miro.
See, I mean, we are very fortunate as facilitators in 2024 that these software companies are putting these tools at our disposals, but we need to play with them. We need to experiment with them. We need to meet in community to discuss them, because there's so many. By the way, you can use Session Lab to help you create a session using AI. It now has that feature. You can. I
play with that. Guess what I did? I'm running a session for a client for their new associate community, and they want to do a session on AI. So I asked your AI, design me a session that allows people to connect and play with AI tools that would support them as a facilitator or trainer. It was great.
Did it do a good job?
Not bad, actually. Things I'd already considered, but it was just really interesting to see how it wrote the plan and how it wrote the flow of that session. I gave it like a length of time and everything. I loved it for that.
Yeah,
it was great.
It's speaking to ChatGPT. It's a prompt that our fantastic programmers have created so that it already asks ChatGPT to think more or less as a facilitator. And by the way, does not give your data back to ChatGPT, because people have been asking us that.
Ah, interesting. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just reading what people are putting in. Nick, I'm out of curiosity, who has played with an AI tool to support them in their work at this time? Probably about 50% of us.
That correlates with the survey pretty well.
Yeah. Okay. Questions. Who had a question?
Lorna has a question. I see her.
Cool.
Or a comment. I don't know. and is muted. Yay. There you go.
Hello, sorry, I didn't mean to have a question.
Oh,
But now I'm here. I'm just playing with all the tech here. So I was interested in the thing that Kirsty was saying about the way that we ask, because I think the whole AI thing is about the question that we ask. So I think we can play around with it. We can ask some really interesting questions. Was there anything around in the survey around the way that we're playing with the questions and the way that we're having those conversations with AI in the survey?
well, we only asked 2 questions about AI, which is, are you using it? And if they said yes, or which tool are you using and how are you using it? Now, a few people did give answers on how are you using it that perhaps speak to your question. Like there were some, to me, very creative uses. One said, I write my session, then I give it to ChatGPT and I ask it to improve it, and then to improve it in certain directions, like including improve it in multiple intelligences, add something more there, improve it in terms of make it more creative, add something there. So that was interesting. There wasn't anything specifically about prompts, but the commentary, so in the report there's 11 people, including Kirsty, giving expert commentary on topics, and the one on AI was Alexander, not going to try to pronounce his surname, who many of you probably know as the AI Tinkerer Club, the AI person. So I think it would be very interesting to ask him. He knows way more than I do about use of AI. I used AI recently to help me with a report, and it was in that case, it was a lifesaver because I had to write a lot of pages of report very quickly. So I gave it like bullet points, and it turned it into, this was local authority. So I was like, write, bureaucratic administrative language for local authority, but use these bullet points that I'm giving you. And it did a pretty good job.
For those who haven't used it, is there, have people got reservations about using AI? Is anyone concerned about using AI? Or even those who are using it?
My experience is very limited, but I think one of the things that some people take for granted is that you can just copy and paste it into something else, and you have to sense check it. And I think that's kind of the learning curve. And when I have toyed with it, which is extremely limited, I found I spent more time toying with it than actually doing the kind of wording myself in the end. So I think I'd like to know like really reliable ways to start to do it. I'm not an experimenter with it by nature. So if somebody's like, here, test it out this way and see what happens, and gives me some good guidance, I think I'd be more comfortable with it. But I'm very much a no thanks person at the moment.
Okay. And then Emma, thank you, about how authentic is it for me? I get that. I think, so as someone positioned it to me, use it like an assistant, as like a springboard, a sounding board. So whatever you get out, like you are going to shape and refine it. You might even delete it. But what I found it was useful for was just either validating some of my thoughts or even just giving me a thread to follow and get my thinking going. I think one of my I still have it as a niggle rather than an overriding fear, though I think this is a fear for some people, is what happens to the information I am putting in. So part of me would love to chuck in some of my proposals that I write for my clients. But then I'm just concerned, like, where does all that information go? Who else will then see it? And I don't know whether that's an invalid thought, because actually it just gets lost in the maelstrom of information. I don't know. What are people noticing? Sort of nodding going around the screen.
I think I'm not an expert either, but I do think that it uses your data for training. So if you put it directly into OpenAI's ChatGPT, you are giving your information to them. And I also know that because I checked with our programmers that but that doesn't apply to everything. Just to describe me a session, that does, if you do it through Session Lab, it doesn't go in there. But that's that's a minor thing. I think the concern is absolutely valid, and it sounds to me like a session on AI would be very well.
I think so too. I might have to get Alexandra to come.
Yeah, please get Alex in.
I will. I did message him ages ago. I need to just follow up. Nicole, you had your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, for me, there was a bit of a debate going on LinkedIn last week actually about using AI and spotting when people are using AI and therefore not being completely authentic, or clients feeling like you're being lazy because you're using AI and you've not put your own thinking into it. So there was this whole debate about excuse my language, bullshit bingo, which is, you can kind of look at, someone you can look at a kind of plan that someone's written or communication and go, there are certain words in there, elevate and amplify, and there were certain words that just keep coming through and through and through.
Right.
So I think it's one of those which is used with caution. Certainly you can use it as a foundation, but then you need to kind of really screen it and make it your own.
Agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Rich.
What do I want to say? Yeah, so tech generally, it's I think it's so useful, and then it can become overwhelming. And what I find increasingly, the feedback I get in the work I do, and maybe it's my bias, is that the moments that are more important are the quieter moments. As like Phil said, the beginning and the openings and the bits in between. And yeah, I don't know. I guess people can get overexcited about the tech because they think something amazing is going to happen. But the juice for me is in the human connection, and you can still do that online without tech. And so for me, that's a personal mission of don't lose ourselves in the tech, and remember that actually a paired conversation for 10 minutes with a damn good question, with the role modeling that we bring and all the things that we talk about, Kirsty, can be so profound. And then I don't know, let other people sort out the tech.
Yeah, and for me, it's a blend. It really is a blend of what we do and how we do it. So I think that's the important bit for me. And I think AI is here to stay, and all these amazing technologies are going to be here. So I often have this visual of us as facilitators that we're on the front of a wave, whether that's ways of working, new ways of doing things. And therefore, as AI and our different tools progress and shift, I do think there is benefit to people in the community knowing what they do and how to use them. So we could come in like this and go, how could I use it? So you don't have to go and become the expert, but we could lean into one another and go, help, how do I do this? How do I get this?
Sorry to interrupt. That's my enthusiasm.
Are we all going to say that now?
I've given you
I love this.
So good. No, that was really bad. I cut you off at the end. But there was a question I asked earlier, because I come here and I learn so much every time. I learn off you, I learn off everyone else. And then but there was a bit about when our clients come and we're trying to respond to their needs. How do we balance that when they're saying, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do such and such? And us actually leading the way and saying, well, this is what you've told me. And then it's also that what they come with, what they want, and then we give them what they need. Right. So getting that balance between we want you to do this with bells and whistles and this and this and this. And, and then we say, well, actually, this is what I suggest. How do you find getting that balance?
That's me.
Yeah, well, I can just say that what you said reminded me of what I do is I go back to the needs, which I think is very similar to what you're saying. So it reminded me of a story that happened to me just when we were starting to be able to meet again. And I hosted citizen dialogues for a small European political party. And there was one guy there who at the end was like, okay, this was nice, but wouldn't it be better if you had, magic whiteboard screen and this and that, because I've seen that used, and you can use this and you can have people put things online. And what that gave to me was that he wanted excitement and novelty. And there are so many ways we can deliver excitement and novelty. One can be tech, but also not. And so that's what I try to do. I try to find out what is it that they are looking for underneath the strategy that they've decided that is fancy, which is, I don't know, using some newfangled tech that they've seen somewhere else. And they're like, oh, we want you to use Kahoot because we saw that Kahoot is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we want fun. We can do fun.
We don't know how to use Kahoot to have fun.
Yeah.
Nice. Lorna.
I think it's a really interesting point, because I think we certainly have that conversation a lot, don't we? Where we go, "Oh, can we have one of those?" And you think, is that really what you want? And just going back to the outcomes really, and thinking, actually, what is it that's going to be different? Because if you do want to sheep dip, we can sheep dip all day long, but actually, what is it that's going to be different as a result of this intervention, interaction, connection? And so for me, it's always like, so why are we doing this? Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it now? And trying to get a sense of that, rather than just going with, because I can do singing and dancing. If you want singing and dancing, I can do that all day. But actually, and people will have a lovely time. But actually, is it, because I too, somebody was saying I work in the local authority space. I work a lot in the public sector space. Actually, me singing and dancing isn't going to help you have a better conversation with a distressed mom or a carer or a housing officer or whatever. So actually, let's be super clear on what it is we're actually trying to achieve. So that's kind of just putting that in the space, really.
Thank you. Wow. What I'm really curious about, just as a group, as we come towards the hour, what's one thing you're taking away from the conversation this morning, whether it's from what we've been talking about in the chat, or what you've heard from Deb, or you've heard from one another? Just one thing. Drop it in the chat, or feel free to come off mute and tell the group. Session lab and sharing of ideas. Yes, Rich, actually, go on.
I'm going to keep being a dinosaur, but with an open heart and an open mind.
What kind of dinosaur are you, Rich?
What kind of dinosaur?
I think I'll do this as a chat on LinkedIn. You've got to come in and tell us what your dinosaurs are.
A brontosaurus,
A brontosaurus.
Big heart, small brain.
I know Richard very well. He doesn't have a small brain, but you do have a big heart. I love that. What else? What else are people saying? AI has potential, reassured that the trend I'm noticing is recognised by others. I'm not going to be able to avoid hybrid. Sign up for Session Lab, embrace the AI.
Sign up for Session Lab.
Sign up for Session Lab. Going to go and check out
Menti. I sound like an advertisement for Menti, but I love Menti. Like, Menti is really what I brought back from the remote into real life.
But that's okay.
Because it solves a real problem. Like, for me, it doesn't take away from the connection. It solves the specific problem of having reporting materials and also quick but meaningful checkouts. So what that brings me to is, if I am aware of some of these digital tools and if I play with them, they might sometimes actually solve a real problem and not just be bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And then other times they're just bells and whistles and distractions.
Nice. So I've just put in the chat box a couple of links. So one is Session Lab. There's an affiliate link. We're not too sure if it works, but go have a look and see what you think of Session Lab. I really, really recommend it, and I use it with all my clients because they can also get access to it, and you can give them like a visitor link so they can put comments onto your agendas, and then the agendas stay there. You can build your own library. Maybe we'll have a show and tell session with Debs another time. I've also put a link in for the gathering that's happening next Friday in London on the 14th of June. So currently we have a small and unique group of about 7 of us, maybe even less. Phil's coming. I'm going to be there, obviously. Having a bit of a celebration. Appreciate some of you are in Germany or in Belgium or in Spain, Camilla. Sam, Northern Ireland. So, but if you're around in the UK, it'd be lovely to see you. You'd be so welcome. And then finally, the next pod is at the beginning of July. Is it the 5th of July? And Hannah's going to be my guest, and we're going to talk about creativity and the brain. So we're going to talk about her tool that she uses to help people identify their creativity style, and how do we then use that as facilitators and trainers to assist us and help us. Thank you for coming. Debs, thank you so much for sharing. This year coming team, make sure you fill out the State of the Nation.
Yes.
State of the Nation. State of the
Nation.
Facilitation.
She says that. I love it. Yes, it will be out presumably in September, the new survey. We're not entirely sure, but we think this year we're going to give it a special focus on in-house facilitation. So still a bit of a general part, and then more questions for people who are facilitating in-house, because we're very curious to know what that is like. They are busy people, so less likely to join our gatherings and communities and talk to us. So we would like some more data on who is facilitating inside their own company. I think that's fascinating work.
And I've literally just put in a request to talk to someone a researcher to help me with the pricing survey for 2024 as well. So the pricing survey.
Very glad you're doing, because that's complicated.
Okay, yeah, I need to make it less complicated. There's so many different data points. Nicole's an ex. Nicole, who's on the call with us, she and I know each other and bonded. She used to be one of our researchers at Diageo, and then went off to do bigger stuff and cleverer stuff. So she gets what it takes to do what you've done, Debs, with that report writing and to analyze all that data and information. Team, great to see you here. I'm going to host an after party now for 15 minutes, so feel free to stay on if you fancy a chat. Debs, thank you so much for being here today. I really,
you want me to stay for the after party?
You are welcome to stay for the after party.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to try and save the chat for all those great comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.